We're right in the middle of the NASCAR offseason, which means there's no better time to talk about the worst NASCAR signings made by teams. So let's get into it. Starting off, we have Penske Racing choosing to sign David Stremme for the 2009 season. David Stremme first stepped foot into NASCAR in 2003 as a development driver for Chip Ganassi Racing, running part-time in the Busch Series for just over half the races in 2003 under the Dodge banner, which saw the 26-year-old earn 3 top 5s, including 2 third-place finishes. Stremme in his first full-time season posted decent stats, collecting 5 top 5s, headlined by a runner-up at Milwaukee, yet surprisingly, he'd swap teams late into the 2004 season, joining Fitz Bradshaw Racing to drive the number 14, after Braun Racing would drop him late in the year for Shane Meal. Stremme went on to finish 10th in the standings in 2004, and returned back full-time with Fitz Bradshaw for 2005, posting nearly identical stats with slight regression to his rookie year, with the same amount of top 5s, but 3 less top 10s, and a worse points finish in 13th. So why not hire him full-time for Cup in 2006, said Chip Ganassi, but not before 4 Cup starts in 2005 to test the waters, where he crashed out of 3 of them, DNQ'd in his 5th attempt, and earned a 16th place finish in his Cup debut. Credit where credit's due on that one. So how did Stremme's tenure at Chip Ganassi Racing go, you're probably wondering? Well, David Stremme would take over the reins of the 40 car for Sterling Marlin, trying to get them back into having consistent speed. Yet the complete opposite would happen, with it taking until June for Stremme to capture his first top 20 of 19th, going on to round out the 2006 and 2007 seasons with a combined 3 top 10s in 70 races, a best finish of 8th at Talladega, and a 33rd and 24th place finish in points. Yikes. Stremme went back to the newly named Nationwide Series for 2008, now with Rusty Wallace Racing, while also becoming a Penske test driver in that time, adding 5 more top 5s and 16 top 10s to his nationwide resume in 2008, his best season to date. But in the Cup Series, things were changing at Penske, as longtime driver of their number 12 Dodge Ryan Newman was set to depart at the end of the season for Stewart-Haas Racing, leaving a top ride in NASCAR open for 2009, and in early September, it was announced that David Stremme would be the driver to fill that vacant role. Originally, he'd be set to run the Alltel car, like had been seen on the 12 in previous years. But the business world did business things, and Verizon would end up buying Alltel to serve as a primary sponsor for Stremme in 2009. Yet they weren't allowed to put any Verizon logos on the car, because business, weird contracts, sprint in NASCAR. Anyways, the 2009 season ended up being a complete disaster for the Penske 12. For starters, his teammate Kurt Busch had already beaten him in top 10s after the checkered flag flew in the Daytona 500, while other teammate Sam Hornish was kinda chillin', doing his own thing on the side. Stremme kicked off 2009 for Penske Racing with a 33rd in the Daytona 500, backed up by his best run of the season the next week at Fontana of, drumroll please, 13th. And it never got better from there. 18th, 23rd, 19th, 22nd over the next 4 weeks, and it never stopped with finishes like those for Stremme in 2009, turning a race-winning car into a backmarker team, and eventually being let go for Brad Keselowski while being 31st in the standings, coming after a 22nd place run at Talladega, where he'd unfortunately run out of fuel just before the final green-white checkered, running in 6th place. Stremme's final stats for Penske in 2009 would be 0 top 10s, 4 top 15s, a 32nd place points finish, and an average finish of 25th and 32 starts. And compared to his teammates, it isn't really much of a shock to see why he was let go before they even reached the conclusion of 2009, eventually going on to run a few part-time seasons in Cup for multiple backmarker teams over the next couple of seasons, most notably driving the 30 car before being out of the sport entirely by 2014. While we're talking about 2000's bad NASCAR signings, let's go back just a few years prior to 2009 to go over J.J Yeley's disastrous time at Joe Gibbs Racing. When I talk about NASCAR's worst signings, it doesn't usually mean the drivers themselves are bad, sometimes it's just them being rushed and expected to meet impossible expectations, leading to a bad fit. And not many NASCAR signings truly represent that better than J.J Yeley joining Joe Gibbs Racing in 2006. Yeley began his NASCAR career in 2004 after being plucked from the dirt scene by Joe Gibbs, swiftly being put into the Busch Series for 17 races, driving in the number 18 car. He'd earned 4 top 10s across this season, and along with running in the Busch Series, he was also thrown into the deep end multiple times in 2004, attempting 4 cup races for Joe Gibbs Racing, but DNQing in 2 of them. Yeley returned back to the Busch Series, now full-time for 2005, hoping to continue his development in stock cars, and that's exactly what he'd do. I guess by technicality, posting 4 top 5s and 12 top 10s, earning him an 11th place points finish. However, things were quickly changing on the Cup side for Joe Gibbs Racing and behind the scenes for the 18 team, with Bobby Labonte choosing to leave the team after the speed that led them to multiple stellar seasons earlier in the 2000s, including a championship, had all but vanished in the last few seasons. Shortly, just a few days after the world learned about Labonte's departure from Gibbs, it was announced that J.J Yeley was going to be the driver to carry on the 18's legacy in the NASCAR Cup Series. 2006 kicked off with Yeley being involved in an early crash in the Daytona 500, and just like Stremme prior, he'd also earn his best finish of the season during the second week of the year, finishing 8th in California, but it'd quickly go downhill from there, with him not returning back into the top 10 until the 18th race of the season, 5 months after in Chicago. After having a season that disappointing, the best thing you could do as a driver would be to not draw any negative attention to yourself, which is exactly what he'd run headfirst into doing, when during a cycle of green flag pit stops during the 5th race of the 2006 chase, Yeley attempted to slow down to 50 miles per hour in front of oncoming cars in the middle of the track to make pit road, leading to a heavy 3-car crash off of turn 4. And unfortunately, the driver he'd send violently into the wall would be the driver who was 3rd in points coming into the event, Mark Martin, swiftly ending his chances at capturing his first championship in 2006. Yeley wrapped up his abysmal rookie season with 3 top 10s, 9 top 15s, a 29th place points finish, and an average finish of 25th, while his fellow rookie teammate Denny Hamlin won 2 races and competed for the championship in his first ever season. But you know what they always say, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And that's exactly what the 30-year-old would do for 2007, returning back to Joe Gibbs Racing for the full season. His sophomore season would be a step up compared to his rookie year, which wouldn't be hard to do, earning a career best and first top 5 of 2nd in the Coca-Cola 600, largely thanks to the assist of fuel mileage, but a top 5 is a top 5. Along with the first career top 5, he'd collect his first ever pole a few weeks later at Michigan, ending up in 6th place by the time they got to turn 4 on lap 1, and 17th place just 17 laps into the event. These would be the highlights of 2007 for J.J Yeley. So to nobody's surprise, it was announced that he'd be let go at the conclusion of 2007, midway through the year, with his replacement being Kyle Busch, who'd go on to win 8 times in 2008, which is more than the top 10s that Yeley had in his 2 seasons driving the same car. Yeley's Joe Gibbs Racing tenure ended with 72 races, 1 top 5, 6 top 10s, a combined average finish of 23.8, and a best points finish of 21st. For Yeley's case, I'd say he got rushed too quick to the Cup Series, as in his second full-time season in Busch for 2006, he took massive strides to improve his stats, yet it was all for naught, as he was flailing in the Cup Series at the same time. J.J Yeley since then has raced for basically any underfunded team in NASCAR you could think of, and after 2 decades since his NASCAR debut, he still continues to race as recently as 2025 in the Cup Series. Speaking of 2025, that's the year our last signing of this video takes place, with our last segment being Riley Herbst joining 23XI Racing. Herbst is by all accounts the definition of a pay driver in NASCAR, someone who without the globs of sponsorship money behind them probably wouldn't have the ride or equipment that they have. He first broke into NASCAR in 2018, running a few select starts in the Truck Series for Kyle Busch, while also making his Xfinity Series debut for Joe Gibbs Racing at Iowa, finishing 6th in his lone start of the year. He'd increased his start count to 9 in 2019, while splitting the 18 with multiple drivers across the season, collecting 3 top 10s and a pole in his starts. Herbst, with the sponsorship backing of Monster Energy, took over the 18 car full-time in 2020 for Joe Gibbs Racing, earning just 4 top 5s in a season in which even Brandon Jones managed 3 wins as his teammate. However, 2 of those top 5s would end up being runner-up finishes, so there's that, I guess. Herbst managed a 16th place average finish and a 12th place points finish in one of the best cars on the track week in and week out, in a weaker Xfinity garage compared to a normal year thanks to the pandemic. A total letdown for his rookie season. Joe Gibbs Racing let go of Riley Herbst for 2021, and he'd take his talents over to the vacant 98 for Storehouse Racing, eventually finding a long-time home for them over the next 4 seasons, where he'd slowly develop into a consistent driver with race-winning speed. He'd collect his first Xfinity Series win late in 2023 at his home track in Las Vegas, absolutely demolishing the field from a 34th place starting spot by over 14 seconds to second place and nearly 20 seconds to third, improving on this in 2024, winning 2 races across the season with 2 incredible drives in the last lap to win those races. This is where Riley Herbst should have stayed, in the Xfinity Series, as at no point did anyone ask for him to become a full-time Cup driver, let alone with one of the top teams in the garage. But that's exactly what happened. Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan bought a third charter, and Riley Herbst was a Cup driver for 23XI Racing. He had previously dabbled in Cup for 8 starts across 2023 and 2024, earning 2 top 10s at super speedways with nothing else to write home about. To start off 2025, the 35 team posted 3 straight 17th place finishes. This would serve as the team's best stretch of races across the season, going on to earn a best finish of 14th in 36 races, coming at Texas in May, driving a car that was capable of winning every single week, as his teammate Bubba Wallace won the Brickyard 400 and competed for multiple wins, while other teammate Tyler Reddick made the playoffs easily as a top 10 car. Herbst would be outshined by Truck Series phenom and top prospect Corey Heim in just 4 Cup Series starts, as Heim was able to best a 35's best finish of 14th 2 times, including a 6th place run at Bristol. Literally the only full-time driver Riley Herbst was able to beat in the standings would be the 51 of Cody Ware, who was driving by far the worst full-time car. Driving the 35, Herbst was able to bring it home 35th in the standings, well over a race behind 33rd, while finishing off the lead lap in over half the races ran in 2025. Riley Herbst's final stats for 2025 were 0 top 10s, 1 top 15, come on bruh, an average finish of 26.4, and a 35th place points finish, possibly the worst rookie season in history. As of now, this serves as his only full-time season in Cup, however he is expected to return back to the 35 for 2026. So who knows, maybe he could show why he shouldn't be on this list. Anyways, that's what I consider some of the worst signings in NASCAR history, and if you have some more that I forgot, leave them in the comments. I'd love to make a part 2 of this. As always, like and subscribe. Subscribing is cool and will leave you full of joy and whimsy, I promise, and I'll see you guys for the next video.